No egos.
No judgment.
Break bread and prosper. Talk to a brother.
Welcome all. Wednesday, the 21st of February. Talk to a brother with Amanda and Medney.
Yeah, our first live event, so thank you for coming out of your way, you lot. Really means a lot to us because it's Wednesday, hump day, and most people would rather be at home with their partners. I know I would, but another story.
What does that mean? I want to pause on that.
We can get into that. Let's get
Brilliant. And we're being joined by some esteemed experts in. We've got a few experts in the audience as well. So, but we've got some esteemed experts in. How we normally do it is we normally go around the room, we'll do a highs and lows of the week. So any of you guys that join us on our normally weekly meetings, we do highs and lows of the week. I think we could do a highs and lows for our guests. But beforehand, can we get an introduction from you guys? So I'm Coach Chris, young pal that most people mostly know me as one of the co-hosts of Talk to a Brother and the Men and Mini group that we have. I'm not pass it up to them. In fact, oh no, sorry, not to them. Out to my high and lows of the week. How about that? Low of the week. Of all the martial arts training, all the fitness training, of everything I've done in my whole entire life, I've been taken up by my tooth. Like, it's emotional. I've literally been resolved back to being a baby again. But the high of the week is having seeing how much my lady and my children have pulled together to support me through it. So my lady nurturing, like edging each time she's not, but like nurturing me through it, and the children have been very supportive. So that's a good recognition of the family circle. I'm really grateful for it. Dr. Dev.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, first of all. I'll just introduce myself briefly. My name's Dev Malhotra. I'm a GP in Thornton Heath, and I've been there for 23 years. And I've born and brought up in Croydon, been to school here. The only time I left was to go to university, and I came back. And I have an interest in mental health, and I'm the mental health lead for Croydon, for their commissioning group, which is known as the ICB. Now, my highs and lows for the week. I think my low was probably maybe yesterday morning. I had a stressful Monday, a busy day, 12-13 hour day, and I got up and I went for a run, and that sort of put everything to perspective. My high for the week is probably being here with you fellas. I was saying to Rasheed before, you know, I can impact on maybe one person at a time in my consulting room, but if I can, you know, provide any advice or support or anyway, and learn from you guys from events like this, then that will hopefully have an impact on a wider, a broader cross-section of our local population. Brilliant. Thank you. Brilliant.
I'm Rasheed. So a bit about me. I have started a new role within the BME Forum, which some of you might know. It's an organisation in Croydon that looks to support people from a BME background with a number of different projects. The project that I am the programme lead for is called the Ethnicity Mental Health Improvement Project, and it's looking to change access, change perception, and increase people's access to services within the mental health. So we're not necessarily trying to do that specifically within the NHS, but we're looking to create a complementary service that sits alongside that actually helps the needs of BME people. In terms of my highs and lows for the week, a low would be I still haven't been back to the gym consistently yet this year, so it's grinding on me a little bit. So that's an ongoing challenge. But a high of this week is I was feeling a little bit stressed last week. So on Sunday, went and baked a load of cinnamon buns, took them into the office, and now everyone loves me because I'm the guy that bakes pastries. And they all want me to continue making more. And I'm a bit of a feeder, so I like feeding people. So that was a nice night.
Thank you very much for sharing. Thomas Scannell, a few of you in there. Fitter father, childcare specialist. Obviously, business partner with Chris over there, doing quite extraordinary things. So I think we've done really well today, Chris. And thank you for attending. My high of the week and low of the week all happened today. So I'm studying coaching and counselling at the moment, and I'm doing a module on models of coaching and counselling, and one of them showed me my behaviours. So the high was that I realised some of my behaviours are childish when it comes to dealing with my partner in regards to arguments and when I don't get my own way. So I'm going to try and correct my behaviours. The low of the week is having to apologise to her for these behaviours. So it's high and a low, but it's a realisation that I can be wrong at times. So we have to go with this as well.
Beautiful. I was actually going to touch on Rasheed's guilt. But he didn't say the word guilt, so I'm screwed with something of not training. Is it because I'm already gym?
Boy, oh,
It's like, damn, I tried to get away. And I'm here now. They've got me here. Who sent me? But thank you, Dr. Dev. Do you mind me calling you Dr. Dev, by the way? Literally,
It's absolutely fine. Dev or Dr. Dev, whatever you like.
in the email, I called you Dr. D. And when I pressed send, I was like, is that actually appropriate? I don't know. So,
a bit too formal.
a bit too. I am that way. And brothers as well. Thank you guys all for joining us. We've got quite a few. It actually changed just a little bit from the sort of flyer that we put out. We actually did have three additional special guests coming in. One of our special guests is still in the room as we speak. I'm really grateful for him. He's just like Chris, don't put that attention on me. But we'll absolutely have some amazing input, which we always do from every single one of you. So every single one of you, thank you very much for committing the time, making the sacrifice, and giving us your audience as well. And as we always know, this is a safe space to talk. There's no egos, there's no judgment. This is a space to break bread and prosper. Yeah.
That's the conversation I believe is about mental health in particular today. Could you explain exactly what the BME Forum are trying to do for mental health in particular?
Yeah, so I think the BME Forum is looking to tackle men's mental health primarily through things like the EMIT program, so the Institute Mental Health Project. What we're trying to do there isn't necessarily only targeted at men, but they are kind of one of the main buckets. So men's mental health has been something that's, I guess, degraded slightly over time, over the last 10 years or so. But particularly what we're focused on is more about the inequality that exists within the mental health system for people from a BME background, whether that be their treatment within the NHS. So, for example, Black men are 4.5 times more likely to receive restrictive treatment than their peers when they are in that kind of environment. So what we're trying to do as part of that is a bit of an education piece, but also, more importantly, provide services that do not replicate that same experience and kind of embed it within the community. So in terms of the program that I'm currently in at the moment, one of the key things we're trying to do is have these community teams that we have a team of support workers that move between various community hubs. So there's one in Thornton Heath, there's one in South Norwood, there's one in Central Croydon, and a couple of others, where rather than phone service or do an email or even go through your GP, you can walk into a room, talk to someone that looks like you, and just get a more human experience, face-to-face experience of being able to talk to them. Similar to what you're doing here in a way, where it's not necessarily about tell me your problems, it's just talk to them.
Yeah.
And through that, helping them to, if they do have something, then either refer them to services or give them the support that we can within the program itself.
So, in regards to what you just said there, sorry, there's been a slight decline in men's mental health over the previous years. Would you say that is more because of awareness and being brought to light and people thinking about it more, or is there actual decline in the state of our health?
Yeah, so I think the data shows, based on 1 or 2 reports, that there's been a decline of about maybe 5%. But I think to your point, there has been general increase in awareness of mental health in the last 5 years or so, maybe a bit longer. And that is maybe contributing to the feeling that mental health is more of a thing. I think also it comes down to men in particular having maybe the space to recognize their feelings where they haven't before, rather than being told to shut them down. It's not something that you should think about or talk about in a very kind of traditional or old school way of thinking. That's being pulled apart slightly at the moment, and we're beginning to see more men reach out for services if they feel that they have a problem, rather than before they probably would have just kept quiet.
Yeah, it's like you say, from what I understand of that, it's dismantling old, what's the word? Old cultural behaviors that we've had. And it goes across cultures as well. It's not just black, Asians, white, or white, or like anything, it's all cultures. And what you sort of, like I tell myself are doing right now, it's a case of breaking those stereotypes, breaking the stigmas, and breaking breaking that culture of not being able to speak in open spaces, where we have in the past harbored it. But to Tom's question, Tom and I have actually discussed this many times in the past, in the sense of, is it a case of now we're in a society where there's so much social media about it, there's people are being have more of a platform to help and come out of it. Are we actually becoming less of men for talking about it, or is it a case of it's something that we've not recognised that has been quite hindrance to our health and general sort of lifestyles?
I have an opinion that you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to take us a step back. I just think, I've been involved in mental health leadership in Croydon for about 17 years now. And, what we're seeing, and the data is not new. We know that black men are overrepresented in the mental health sphere. The more sections, 136s, which is where the police take you away if you're psychotic, and this is the first time in my career, the last couple of years, with the MHIT project, is that we're actually starting to directly impact on that issue. And just going about the sort of the stigma and the breaking down the barriers, I think with situations like this and other community services, people who wouldn't normally approach a statutory service with their mental health issues are more likely to confide in their friend or their pastor or their barber or whoever. They'll confide in them, and then there is far more information available, and those stigmas are being broken down. So this is really quite exciting in developing access to those services, because people may not want to come and see me or phone me up, but they would talk to someone in their community, someone they trust, to get that advice and that sort of first step along their sort of journey to recovery.
So before you answer, Rasheed, because you've been doing it for a long period of time now, what do you think is the biggest impact on the mental health there? Because obviously if we're talking 5% every 5 years for 15 years, that's a lot of percentage. I'm not going to try to work out the maths, but what do you think is the biggest impact on it?
The biggest impact, I was saying to Rasheed before we started, was during the COVID pandemic. My colleagues and I, we set up a vaccination centre in Thornton Heath. Thornton Heath is a predominantly black minority ethnic population, but we were seeing the white British ethnicity were flocking in, queuing up at the doors, desperate to get their vaccination. But we couldn't persuade our black minority ethnic patients to come in for love nor money. So we started doing a series of webinars in conjunction with the faith organisation, and it was just clear as day there's a mistrust with statutory services. Then on the back of that, MHIT began in Wandsworth, and so with connections with Wandsworth, and we sort of had some discussions with them, and then we brought it to Croydon. So that in the last 3 years has had the biggest impact. What I've been doing before is sort of been playing sort of lip service. So we've been moving things around. We've got some good building blocks. The sort of co-located with the BME Forum is the Croydon's Health and Wellbeing Hub, which is a central hub where people can get access to mental health services, and that's for everybody in Croydon. We've got some other services. We've got a recovery cafe, which is run through Mind. We've got mental health personal independence coordinators who can support people with their mental health, but they have to be accessed by statutory services. But for the first time, we have an opportunity to go out into the communities and allow people within those communities to access that information, that support. And for me, my ambition isn't just around mental health, it's around the whole of health. Because in my practice, even when I left to come here tonight, one of my colleagues was telling me, we've got a young chap whose diabetes is out of control, his blood pressure is out of control. We've got so many people like that. They don't come in for their checks, they don't take their medication, and we see 1 or 2 deaths a year, or 1 or 2 catastrophic strokes where these people are completely disabled. So we need to get those messages, whether it being blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, mental health, cancer. You know, people need to be trusting of statutory services to support them and help them recover, and not have those impacts where their health is so catastrophically affected, and the impact. You know, you've got to think about not just the impact on them, but their impact on their families, on their community, on their friends. You know, so those are sorts of. So it's quite a long-winded answer, but really, to summarise, yeah, MHIP and coming out of the pandemic has made the biggest impact on this direction travel.
And the root cause, one of the words that we've sort of floated around even now, is trust.
Yeah.
Because even personally, I'll be open about it, I've gone through like counselling in the past, and through a work-related incident that I had. And I remember coming out of that experience and even going to the GPs, and there was that gap. I didn't feel the people that I saw that I was in front of, they had my best interest at heart. So I personally would be more inclined to go into, in fact, I've seen more solutions in our Mandem Medley and our sort of Talk to a Brother groups of people being connected to different services and different resources. One of the brothers the other day was just like, oh yeah, toothache, cloak, or somebody else was just like, different things that go on. We technically could be going to the professional services, but there's been such a history, like you say, of mistrust. And where does that come from? How do we sort of break down?
Well, I wanted to ask was,
is it necessary to break down that barrier?
what can I actually ask a question into the audience if they want to answer? Who has a mistrust in the NHS? Bring up their children, family network being in the house, to everyone wanting to move out quickly, both parents working, child going into childcare, child being brought up by my childcare service is good, by the way, if you want to send your children in there. But childcare, probably not the same role models as the family would be. And it's again, you said it before, a loop. So our children are going places where they shouldn't be because they're not getting the same, I don't know, life skills they would be at home.
So I think you hit the nail on the head with your
spoke too much, didn't I?
Brexit comment.
Yeah.
You know, we can look back over the last sort of 10 to 20 years, can't we? Even before that, we've had, you know, since I've, you know, I'm probably a bit older than most people in this room, but, you know, you've had the boom and bust years in the 80s and the 90s. We've had the financial crash in 2008. We've had Brexit. We've had COVID. We've had Ukraine. You know, all of these things. I think it's financial pressures that are driving two parents to work. You know, how do you afford a house? You know, or a property or rent. You know, this are the choices that people are making. They aspire to, and quite rightly aspire to a better life. But you know, I think the financial pressures are the things that are driving the sort of this change in the way the families are being brought up. Yeah, again, you're absolutely right that the you know, having those role models, having that stability at home for the children is not what it was.
I think in regards to the BME forum as well, I don't know how long you've been there.
Coming up to 2 months.
2 months, so we can't query too much on that. So, how are they going to tackle the home at the BME forum? Because I do definitely believe community and grassroots is the way to better mental health as a community and for individuals. I don't know, did anyone here knew about the BME before today? Yourself, I know you lot did, yeah, okay, so my point is invalid now. But how do we make sure that everybody knows about the BME, how it's further than just a small community of people? I didn't know about it before I met an individual that said about it. I didn't know about the great work we do. How do we make sure, how are you tackling it in the home? If that was a question.
Yeah, interesting. So I think what the BME Forum can do is highlight where we can help. So we do things around helping with like the food bank that you were a part of. There was also things that we done at BME Forum. The way that the forum works at the moment is it works as a collective of individuals' projects that can then help the community. There are things that we have in the pipeline that will be able to speak to some of what you're talking about. So, for example, as part of, I know we've been talking about it a lot tonight, but it's kind of really relevant. One of the things that the MHIP program is doing is training up systemic family therapists from people within the community to spend 2 years training. Is actually really hardcore training that they do to become fully qualified counsellors. These people will then be able to provide a service to families within the community to offer them some help and support with any challenges or issues that they're facing. In regards to the BME Forum and what we can do and the visibility of the forum, there's a lot more that can be done. I think it's a kind of classic example of a charity trying to make its voice heard, but not having the money to go behind that, and different ways we can do those things. So me being here is one way of raising awareness of the forum and MHIP to kind of let people know that we're out there and what we can do. But you're right, there's definitely more that we can do, and it's definitely on my little roadmap around how we can promote more of what MHIP has to offer, and then by extension the forum as well.
I'm going to add a little bit more, just to say, and I've said this to your boss, Andrew, the CEO. BME Forum is, like as you said, is a collection of projects, individual projects, and I think it needs to be more of an activism type organisation. It needs to sort of start challenging the statutory organisations and our local politicians and sort of holding them to account a bit more.
Even man to go to now, look at him, activists all over him.
So there's that aspect, as well as sort of delivering and the community engagement, but there's also holding people to account, and that I think I've said that many times. So
I think that needs to happen a lot more in Croydon in general.
I want to acknowledge Andrew, brother, thank you for sharing your story about your friend as well, because that takes a lot of courage to do. And as you're talking through it, I felt the emotion within you, and that's like kudos to you, bro. Because for one, it takes a brother, it takes a really good friend to be able to cope with that. You're a human being yourself. I know you've got a family, bro. You've got a family of your own. You've got your own parents, you've got your own children, your own wife, your own household to maintain. And this is one of the things where it impacts into society. And all it takes is for somebody like yourself who's basically at an intervention point yourself. You've got your own children to raise. You've got exams, you've got school reports, you've got uniforms, you've got roof over their head and everything else in your plate. You as an individual man yourself, and I know you've gone through stuff as well, like you live in Croydon, kudos to all of you guys who grew up in Croydon. And then you've got a friend you're also trying to help through their stages. So this is what I feel the challenge that a lot of us do face. That again, I don't know how much you share to, or if you have anyone that you share your experience or that you offload to, because it's taken on a lot of responsibility that I'm not sure how, not just respect, but what training you have, what qualifications you have, or what experience you've had in the past.
Even no experience or anything, but the way I deal with myself personally is trying to surround myself with the right people, religious, kids, my wife, and yeah, I go through a lot myself, and it's not like I've got someone that's on my side that I can talk to, but I do have a few people in my head, a few eccentric people in my head that I speak to, and they answer my questions for me. It's my own madness, but I end up, I don't know, just try to deal with life. Life can throw you a lot of lemons in it. use them and make lemonade with them. You know, so but there's other people out there that ain't got our coping mechanisms and they confuse very quickly. And if you can try and help them, put them in the right space or put them into the right direction, like I say, I know Rasheed does his BME thing now, and if I see someone going for a thing, most of you say, look, right here, I want to talk to them and see what they can do, see what they can do for you. But experience myself, I've not really got any work experience. I can say that.
I think that's the most important thing, is that your experience you have is life experience and you're willing to be open and honest. I feel like the most help I've had from anybody has been someone that's open and honest with me, that is willing to help me, because I gravitate towards them more than I would say a doctor or an NHS person. And I feel like I'm being listened to rather than just being written down and passed on. So I can only say qualifications are important to an extent, but I think the first step in any journey is finding someone that is willing to listen to you and be open and honest with you. So you don't need that, bro. So congratulations to you, like Chris said.
You're a hero when you're right, bro. And no disregard to, again, anyone who's qualified, like Dr. Dev, like Rasheed, who is qualified, because at the same time, I've come from a corporate background, and with the career that we go through, the jobs that we apply for, it is like we do have, not quite, I don't want to say quota, but we do have, it's a job. Somebody sat in front of them, you can't give them like 24 hours, like one patient, which you then got to go back to your team and, you know, questions will be asked like, okay, where is your delivery and whatnot, what's your KPIs, like wherever it is, however your measures, you know. So it's a catch-22 on each scenario, but again, like Andrew, like, in fact, all you brothers, you're like, to me, you guys are heroes, because it takes a lot to do that, especially, again, about that training with that skill set. Come on, Roger.
Just say something. Mental health, in my experience, it creeps up on people, and they don't kind of, it can be quite insidious. They don't know it's happening, and it could be stages where, you know, is it bereavement, illness, loss of job, etc., etc. And it's like, oh God, what's happening? And then it can kind of just hit you almost overnight, and then you have panic attacks, you have all sorts of stuff. It affects you physically. I know people as well who've gone through mental health programs, and one or two haven't, you know, made it on the other side, unfortunately. But what I was going to get at was, from my side of the family, my father, he's had a lot of pain over the years. He's 87, and it was actually last week. He said to me, "If it wasn't for your mum being here, I probably would take my own life, because I'm going through too much pain." And we discussed it further, and he said to me, he goes, ring up a helpline, and I speak to this company, I can't remember what he called it now, but it's a helpline he speaks to now, and he tells this complete stranger his problems, what he's going through, and he said to me, they really helped me a lot. And then it kind of cast my mind back to when I was a young kid and the BT adverts that would come out with, I think it was Bob Hoskins, when he did this BT advert saying, all you need to do is keep talking, just keep talking. You know, it makes such a difference just to ring someone up and not be so shy, or, you know, don't be scared to see what reaction you get, and just be honest and tell them, look, I'm going through that big problem and I need help, you know. And it can be as simple as that. And it depends what stage you're at as well. You don't sometimes even know that you've got mental health issues.
I think one of the most impactful weeks that we've had here, and I'm going to shine a light on him again, he's given me a corner a couple of times, was I think about 3 or 4 weeks back, where Brother David well, and we've got a lot of sharers, so every single brother in here. Chip, you've been silent over there as I've seen you, bro.
I'm listening.
This is the quietest I've heard you, or whatever. But Brother David the other week said something that was so impactful amongst a lot of our team. Tom, I don't know how wealthy you are right now, but you're just dropping money, bro.
I don't, I'm not there. Okay, just I smell it a long time.
Sorry, guys, take your attention away. My attention is growing one side to another. This is the codeine kicking in, by the way. But their brother David shared something in a group of men that afterwards, so many brothers were coming to me and saying, Chris, that was so impactful. I wish I was there for it. And bro David says, should I quote him or should I ask him to say himself about fear, about being afraid?
Or being afraid. So I lost the capability of, I mean, I still have it in parts, but I lost the capability of being fearful, and that's been useful in my work and how I share. So in the topic that we're speaking about right now, something's been sitting on me, so about what is good mental health, and Dr. Dev, when you speak, it reminded me, you speak so well. I'm enjoying even the way you articulate the words and even how you think. And then it reminded me what I diagnosed myself is having good mental health years ago, was having the sound of mind. Because when you speak, it's like a symphony in my head, it just resonates. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I wrote that down for myself years ago. So yeah, and to add some context to this room, I've been sexually. So I was sexually in 2018. I was in Green Parks in Farnborough. So I fully understand what it's like to be in that NHS system. But I'm kind of going to conflict the room slightly. I was treated quite well, I'm honest. And I kind of bring conflict to a lot of these, not conflict, it's wrong. I kind of bring the other side to a lot of fashions because I've been through a lot. So when things get brought up in rooms, I think, oh, I've done that. Well, I've done that. I've done that as well. And I don't really I have some real negative stories to share regarding my NHS treatment. One being having one of my children, and what happened to me coming out of Green Parks and being in a supported hospital. So, and you can imagine then having my first child, the experience I was put through. Again, that's for maybe another share, but I think you get it. What happened? So, and that experience and stuff. So, I've had my fair share, but you said something again, Dr. Dev, about what is better and trying to achieve better. So, since life has changed and trying to achieve better, someone in the industry reminded me, because I put a lot of pressure on myself, move the family out into Kent, Garden of England, smells better, tap water's supposed to be better. Even though I don't drink it. But everything's supposed to be better, and then it came with its own set of problems. Because now I'm the young drug dealer in the village. You know, I have 3 phones, because as you guys know, working in the industries, you have your personal work, you have 3 phones, and you're in the playground with 3 phones. Who are you? What do you do? Kind of thing. You can't. So it creates its own problems. And then I was like, you're right, what is better? I thought this was supposed to be better. And then I realized better's just being safe. Being safe and feeling safe. So inspiring to, I feel like these things have grown because men have become more safe within themselves. And things like this have grown. Beforehand, we've tried to buy the house and buy the car and buy the clothes and do this and get the job and all of these pressures that no one's really putting on you but yourself. You know, and we lose the relationship with our children, and we lose the relationship with our partners, and we lose the relationship ultimately with ourselves.
And I had a long conversation with my daughter today, taking it away from mental health, but it's in the same way what David's saying. And me and Chris spoke about it yesterday as well. What do you want to be in life? What do you want? I want loads of money, I want a nice car, I want a big house. These are pressures that are external. And like David was saying, and like my course said today, because my course helped with my daughter, that's why it's even better, because I was looking at the models of what she's talking about, to how I react. It's like, who told you need this? When you can be safe, you can be comfortable in a smaller place with less pressure. Because the bigger you get, the more pressure you become. So, going men's mental health, women's mental health, men are already dealing with these pressures. They're now being put into our women. So community can only collapse if we're all feeling this pressure. There's no one there to support it from the bottom.
I find the managing medley when you first told me about it, not me, but I joined the group and I saw things that these lot was talking about and different stuff, and I was thinking, I can relate to what you just said, because I'm going through that, and like kind of started to open me up and kind of opened up in the groups, let some things out about my fears, about my children, the area they're growing up, what it's going to my head, what mind frame I'm in more time. And you lot came out and said certain things to me that kind of alleviated that stress and that anxiety that was building up inside of me. And I feel that you're out there because fundamentally feel that it's been great. I think it's been wonders on certain people that are in the group, because they've got someone they can talk to and not pressuring them. So, what's something you do today? Let people open up slowly, and the things that you say, it helps because it's kind and helpful. And other people put their, that happened to me, and or don't worry about that. Try and do this, it's helping, So even just being here is helping my health, my mental health. Right. So I feel that the group and what everyone's here mostly going through in life, coming together and talking about it as men, I think that's a good outlet in its own before you start going off the rails and start going into, I don't know, most of the not talking, most of the getting back into yourself, no one to talk to Michelle, So this is a start, man, in Medellin. He and me, what Dr. There's doing as well, how to try and address these issues of ethnic minorities, trusting the system, and bringing out awareness what we need to do to help ourselves and our mental stresses of our minds and everything. So that's what I have to say about mentally. It's really brought out a lot inside of me that I wouldn't really have sat down with a group of people and started to open up about. So what I think.
I think what you both shared is really important, and I think it speaks to what you mentioned, Chris, earlier, that we can go into any detailing around becoming less manly. You didn't say those words exactly, but it was something along those lines. I think what it means to be a man and masculinity is really changed, or is changing, and the old kind of stereotypical views of being stoic, not talking about your feelings, shutting down, you don't really deal with things because the only thing you need to do is go out and earn, and you do the job, you're the provider, and that's the limit of what you should be and what you should aspire to. But I don't think 20 years ago we'd be sitting in a room with a man saying, like, actually people being kind, that I feel anxious, that I feel a little bit stressed, would be, people would look at that and be like, why is he talking about all of these things? Like, we don't talk about that, that's not right. But I think we're getting to a place where it's becoming more comfortable just to be a person, and that's where masculinity should come from. Be comfortable in who you are and what you're experiencing, rather than it being a stereotype that you need to fit or that society is putting on you, similar to what you're saying. And I think that is kind of one of the ways that we'd all help ourselves, is by actually just accepting some of those feelings and thoughts that we all have, and not necessarily afraid, but it's not following the expectation that has been set for us in the past, and starting to create a new way of living and being as men in the new world, and also teaching our children about all of those things too, because they'll learn from us. And unless we break the cycle, nothing will change. So we take the responsibility.
That's my biggest advice. I say it in a lot of meetings. One of my biggest advices is I want to break, but not that my parents, I'm so grateful, I call it privilege, that I've got both my parents, and I'm now supporting one of my parents going through their own stage during their 70s. And I see what they're going through, what they try to do the best of what they could do as a blueprint. I can look at them and be resentful that, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. You're really, I got beaten on your next. I could go through the roof of so much. And I take a step, as a parent now, take an objective step back, and I'm like, shit, you guys were doing exactly what I'm doing, which is you're giving the best you could with what you knew and what you had. Your two Nigerian parents came here in the 60s, studying to become a mechanic, doing the best that you could, again, what you had with the education you had from back home. You know, imagine a 20-year-old coming here in the 70s, you know, and making their way, which is what a lot of our parents, whether it's from Ireland, whether it's from wherever it was, like, you know. So right now, my biggest advice is being an example for my children, and also trying to be transparent with them as well. I'm very, like, again, a lot of the guys know I share so much. I share, my children know that I have a code, or my lady have a code to my phone. I only have a lock on it just in case I drop on the floor, but they have full access to everything that I do, and it's something that I didn't necessarily grow up with. Anything that me and my lady are going through, we've been together 21 years come September, and we literally talk and communicate what I try to say, effectively communicate. Everything with them, we don't try and shield them, well, within reason. Not in the bedroom, means. But we don't. We try and make sure that they try and engage them with as much as we can in a respectful way. 15-year-old and 10-year-old, to be that. And it's, again, it's learning from the experiences that we've had, friends that we've lost, family members that I'm supporting right now that in their 70s are having breakdowns. I've seen so many family members having breakdowns, and a lot of the stuff that they come out with is they've harbored so much. They've lived up to an expectation of external validation for that whole of their life, whether it's culturally, whether it's, oh, I was supposed to be an accountant, doctor, lawyer, I did this job, I did this lifestyle, and I didn't want to do it. Now I can't do anything else, and I've got a responsibility. I've got all these properties, I've got like property, like, you know, all these things that it's just wild to hear. It's like, wow, and so many of my uncles I've heard have these, or elders I've heard have these conversations. I'm having these conversations where I'm like, wow, but you put so much pressure on me to do this, and now I'm hearing you say this in your retirement stage. It's kind of wild. But it's great. I take this as an opportunity. Even like this group, like you said, 10, 20 years ago, it would have been frowned upon. My version of masculinity back in the day was, oh, the short nigga running around topless with a cigar in one hand, gun in one, and a woman in on the shoulder or something, you know, body count. You know, that was count, you know, literally body count. And that's what a masculine man was. Yeah. So I was a guy in the gym trying to do it, to give it the order of that. But it's it's... Hello? It's relearning and being open. Like, I call myself a student of life, and that's what I try and help my children. Just always being open to learn, and I've always been open to learn and just trying different things. So if that's all coming in, I'll go. Let's do good. Jumping up.
No, I'm sorry, just to carry on what you're saying. I feel like every father wants to be a superhero to their child. And for me personally, looking at my dad growing up, he was my superhero. And as I come to learn about life, not from him telling me, he wasn't my superhero anymore. He was an alcoholic old man who couldn't look after me. So he lost his superhero, and I found my idol somewhere else. As a parent, being able to be transparent to our children, and like, I'm a superhero, not like Superman no more, but I'm a superhero being honest, open. I am beatable. I do have my cry moments. I do feel bad about me and my partner do argue, and this is life. I've always said it. Anybody that's got a perfect relationship, someone's fucking someone else. Like, it's a fact. If you look at a relationship and someone, they're too happy together. You're gonna go shake them up. Yeah, come just be honest. You're not meant to be together. But being honest from the ground that life isn't perfect. Like Andrew said, lemons are thrown at us on a day-to-day basis. All we can be is resilient to what the obstacles are in front of us and try to overcome them. And John said as well, sometimes life hits us too hard, too often. We can all break. And alcoholism is probably an inch away from some of us right now. Drugs are, But if we have a community around us that can notice these issues or see that we're not our normal self, and I called you the other day, I can hear it in your voice instantly, Chris, you okay? If we don't have that around us, we will break. Or if we're not observant enough around, knowing people around us in our circle are going down, they'll break, and then we'll wonder, why did they break? Because we were too caught up in the external of the house, the car. Why is my daughter suffering? Why is my daughter keep going out and finding these guys and smoking weed? It's because I wasn't observant in her life. I was more worried about having a house over and the roof over her head, which is important, but how important is having her mentally, again, what is mental health, what is good mental health? Giving her the skills and tools to keep that is all I can do as a father. But if I'm going to hide from my mental health, how do I expect her to just shut up and go and sit in the corner? It's never going to work.
And like you said, it starts from self. How can we actually try and heal our community and help our community and how we heal and help ourselves? And that's what one of my realities has always been. It's almost like a savior complex that a lot of us sort of grow up with. But without really understanding the fundamentals, like we just on a heart camp or heart retreat, we took, I was telling you earlier, we took 16 boys camping last week on a heart retreat, and it was teaching these young masters, we call them, aged from 12 to 16 years old, sorry, 12 to 19, 15 of them, how to reconnect with their hearts. And as we're doing some of the exercises, we're doing jiu-jitsu, we're doing archery, we're doing so many other things, but also a lot of workshops. And as we're doing some of the workshops, as one of the experiences that we had to do, which we're going to do with us guys here, is we had to bring a baby picture or a young child picture of ourselves. And we literally had to have a conversation with that. And even the elders, the leaders, we did it as well. And I was looking at this young picture of myself, and I was like, I actually remember being in this little sky blue suit that I was wearing, my afro back in the day, so I'm like quite traumatizing. I've triggered a bit, no. But like there was just looking at a picture of thinking life was innocent, and that's ultimately, it's kind of, we go a full circle around in life. We go back, and my whole experience of this tooth thing now is a big reckoning that almost like a full cycle. Round, we'll start with that innocence, and the world is so much colours and everything else, and sweets and flavors and everything else, music, Michael Jackson, and like, you know, that was my child. And we took circle, we come up with all the armor that we started to put on, which is okay, secondary school, primary school, secondary school, college, university, career, qualification, marriage, children, all that kind of thing, that armor, and then it's like, okay, friends, everything else that sort of comes on the way, and you sort of kind of go around and you do all of those things for the cycle. I'm not trying to be depressed with this, by the way. I don't know. I hope this isn't because a lot of people yeah, where are we going with this, Chris? And you kind of go around, and a lot of the armor starts to come off. And within that armor that we sort of put on, there's so many character traits that we put on, even to shield ourselves because of, again, external expectations of be a man, stiff upper lip. This is what we do in our company. This is for the family name, you're the head of the family, you're the guy, and there's so many pressures that we allow ourselves to take, and I realize now it's a lot that we allow ourselves to take. And when I step back and have an objective perspective of a lot of the, I call it lessons that I learned, a lot of it was my own interpretation. A lot of it was my understanding or how I acknowledge certain things that I heard. And when I now look back at a lot of the people who gave me those messages, I was like, wow, you're playing guessing games yourself. It was like, or even your interpretation of this actually wasn't, not that it was right or wrong, it actually was a bit different from what the actual truth is. That was just your interpretation because you were reading it from a pair of glasses that had one lens, so you could see the full word or whatever it is. And that's life.
It's we're telling ourselves about ourselves all the time. That we, like you said, you put on tools and ready for war. No one else ain't going to fight, but you're ready for this war because you built up this armor, this narrative that, you know what, this person doesn't like me. This person hasn't thought about you since you were 18 years old. Like, why are you stressed out about it? But we tell ourselves that we have to do these specific things as a man that no one has kind of told you. You've just seen inklings here and there and just become this individual. But I think I'm at an age, and I think a lot of us in this room are at this age now, where we're able to question what has been told to us, and we're able to open up about it and realize, do you know what, if we, I think Dev said it as well, if we carry on telling our children these, it's only going to be a decline in their mental health, and we're seeing it by what they're getting caught up, the desensitization to sex because porn is right. Who remembers the first time they saw a porn magazine? kids wouldn't know what to do with a magazine now. Like, it's so readily accessible. Murder's accessible. The music, when we was growing up, I thought was bad. It is a million times worse. Like, I don't know. I don't listen to music that often, but I heard the baby this morning, right? And I listened to his song, and I stopped the car, and I said to my missus, all he talks about is drugs, sex. And like, I couldn't believe it. Like, this is what my children are listening to.
Yeah.
But that narrative, unless we step in, is going to be what they tell themselves. And where's that going to take them? Because things can only decrease like in that way unless we step in and say, I don't know if you've been in Chris's car. Chris listens to noise, not music. Listens to noise. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but there's meaning behind it, and he can explain that, and he can explain that to his children. But I can't explain DMX telling somebody, I'm gonna, if you've got a daughter older than 16, I'm a raper. What sort of lyric is that we're listening to? I couldn't believe that when I first recognized that as well. Like DMX, I was listening to this as a child. No wonder I wanted to do stupid shit, because I'm listening to an American rapper tell me about raping a 16-year-old. And this is stuff that we hear subconsciously in our minds repetitively again and again and again. Luckily enough, I didn't smoke weed, but I could only imagine if I smoked weed, I'd have been doing some fucked up shit. So sorry for my language as well. So we need to get in there early and tell our children something different.
First acknowledgement though, because two people have put their hands up, brothers, I'm going to come to it. Just so you know, you do sound like an old man.
I'm an old man. I'll become my dad. I had a glass of whiskey here now. I'm like my dad.
You can say these old guys trying to like block our game. We are now. You know, that's it. No, but it's the truth, bro. It is the truth. And it is the case. In relation,
They were right.
And they were right. And I'm very conscious of what my children listen to. Like I've had conscious conversations with my children about what they listen to. I think it's Doja Cat. Is it Doja Cat? So my daughter was listening to some songs. My daughter's 10, and she listened to. She was in a bathroom, and she was playing a song. She was singing a song along word for word, and I don't know if she knew what she was singing, or she didn't know what she was singing. And I went into the bathroom. I was like, "Ava, my love," and she stopped. I was like, "Ava, can you repeat the words back to me?" And she didn't want to. I was like, "Okay, so that's a clear indication that no, you shouldn't be saying this." And I was like, and I watched the video, and I was just like, "Oh my god, it was a nightmare for men anyway." So that's the sort of engagement, but we have that relationship. But sorry, bro, I'm going to take it into audience. There's too much consideration. I'm going to come fix it.
No, I just want to send me go back to like the NHS and what we can do and physical applications. So I'm not going to put myself on the platform, but I run a black mental health group, and because of one of them, I'm here because we have a community for only the people that attended. So I want to thank them anyway for bringing me here. But there's so many things we can do. For example, well, here talking about kind of your experience. There are courses by mine, by the Zero Suicide Alliance, Calaptic Coding Learning, Adults and which is down the road. They do mental health courses, and there's loads of free tools that we have. Whilst it won't get us to the level of the experts here, it will give us just the tools to help us be that bit better. And in my group, I often say to the men, you've got to kind of stay present, but you also have to think both ways. So I'm approaching 3 over soon, and I feel old that this is so young now.
Young, trust me. No problem. How do you chief? How do you chief, sir?
I'm 43 and I taught this young man.
Oh, no, wow. Bro, that feels old now.
I know, right? I've got a grey hair though. But no, so when I say look both ways, it's like, I say to the men, be the person today that your younger self could look back and be proud of, but also think about who you want to be, whether it's in 5, 10 years, and work towards being that. Because again, like you're talking about the baby in Doja Cat, I think I heard Doja Cat once, and I was like, this sounds cool. I don't like it. And it's, like the baby is just like no. And like it's weird. Like the older I get, the more I still listen to some of the old stuff like old Kanye and Common and Lauryn Hill, but like I'm like, actually no, there's stuff today we can listen to that's wholesome. When you think about people like Lil Sims, Phonics, J. Cole, J. Huss, Stormzy, like there's so many great people today. And I think it's about, again, having that both ways of reflection, seeing the tools, and also just like supporting and being there for one another. Like in my group, there's one of my best friends I've known since school. And when he came to the group, with the Black Mental Health, like he opened up with like being in uni and wanting to take his own life. And it was just like, I was there facilitating the session. He's sitting in the circle. One of his friends is there, and me and him are looking at each other going, did you know? No? And then I kind of opened up to the group and said, yeah, I felt the same with you. I felt that last year. Then he looked at me, and even one of my best friends I know since 6 years old, the one we did in December, I talked about my own mental health and all those feelings. And he looked at me like, and if we're getting to a point where our best friends can't know that we're at that point, like literally, I remember hearing today, my mother works for NHS, that there was a jumper, I think yesterday.
Yeah, bridge,
yeah. So like, if we get to a point where our friends don't know this, then how can we help the men in the room that some of us are strangers? So it's about just being that change you want to see, and using some of those maybe free tools out there to just give yourself that little 1% to help each other be better.
Thank you.
Now, so I'm just gonna kind of add on to the conversation in terms of the music and what we consume and what we're allowed to consume commercially, which is purposely targeted to young people to manipulate them to think a certain way. And this is why I think, if going back to what you guys are saying, if we're going to break aside, we need to begin to question what we're being fed, whether that be the music, whether that be the food, whether that be information. So I think for me, is like I tell the kids all the time, language and words are powerful. And what we consume sooner or later will become. And this is why a lot of the time we have a lot of these problems, because subconsciously we're not realizing that we're being fed over this, we're thinking a certain way and we're acting a certain way. So breaking that cycle, allowing that space to be able to have these conversations and to question, as you said, Thomas, that we're at a stage now where hold on a second, that doesn't sound right. That's not right. Let's just stop for a second. Let's talk about this, because we need to break this down. Do you realize what you're listening to? And this is a type of, I teach art and photography, and I like to teach philosophy with some of the kids that I've had the pleasure of teaching and educating. And we have these conversations, in particular with some of the young men that I have. They're like, yeah, let's talk about Andrew Tate. This is an interesting conversation. Because a lot of young people look up to him and say, what do you look up to? Because I have reservations in the mind of that. But so I like to hear their perspective as well. So I think it's important that to question and analyze that of which would be fair. And I guess maybe that goes back to the point in terms of the hesitancy, because we've been lied throughout historically. It's like, wait, are you trying to force feed something else that potentially is not really good for me? But yeah, let's.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, first time I've come to one of these sessions and listened in, and it's been really insightful. So thank you, first and foremost. But I've listened to everyone, and there's a common theme around what everyone's kind of saying is about communication and talking, right? And the ability to be able to talk, and actually, it's trying to change what I've kind of learned about myself. And I've had a coach over the last year. Is actually that vulnerability is a strength. And actually, you kind of spoke about being masculine and what is the definition of that. And what I've learned is having that vulnerability is a strength to be able to communicate and talk. And then setting your kind of standards and everything like that of life, and then kind of adhering to those standards in your life that then helps you to give you clarity in your life and stuff like that. But it does ultimately is trying to change that culture of actually you can talk, you know, and feel that actually what you're talking about, what you've held inside is actually a sign of strength. The fact that you've been able to communicate it. And I've learned that. And the more I've been able to talk, and the more I've been able, no matter how silly it might sound or whatever it might be, I've got it out there, and it's actually making me feel better. So that's just one thing I wanted to say. There's loads of things I could talk about around this topic, definitely. But when you talk about cultures, you know, we've all kind of grown up in different cultures, backgrounds, and you know, I grew up in an Asian background, and it was like, you know, there's this kind of almost expectation that you're going to be, you know, we're kind of in this system, right? In a way, we're born, we come in, it's school, it's education, it's then work for 40, 50 years of your life, and that's the expectation, and that's what you're going to stick to. And actually, you don't have the ability to actually say, hold on, I don't really want to, I don't exactly want to do this, or like, you know, like, why am I being kind of, and then you get into this rat race, you talk about the house, the car, and everything like that, and it's all of these things that are kind of connected, I guess, but ultimately, it's, for me personally, it's, if you've got that strength to be able to be vulnerable and be in that place, to be able to be open and communicate, then I feel like that's a starting point to kind of, you know, address issues that you may be facing.
I've got a friend of mine who's an actor, and well, I mention his name, but you know, and I've looked up for him for a long, long time, and only in the last year, he said to me that he suffered from mental health for a long time, and I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe it, because you know, this guy's you know, earns good money, is in this series that's been going on for many, many years on TV. And me and my brother were like, we're known from work, from what we do, and we were just talking about it. Couldn't believe this guy, because, you know, he's got his image and aura and strong, this, that, and the other, and confident, and you know, I was quite surprised he actually mentioned this to me. So yeah, it's very strange to know like the signs as well. Some people could be, you know, on top of the world and be successful, and yet inside they're just not, you know, they're cracking and breaking. And I suppose it's recognising the signs that they're going through at that tough time. And how do you recognise these signs? You know, that's important key, I think. And how you know, how they can make you aware of it, or unconsciously, or I think that is the issue, is knowing when someone's going through, and maybe approaching them and saying, look, I recognise you're going through this, or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, you know, it's difficult to do that to a friend, and so you don't put them on the spot either. It is a tricky one, I think, to find that balance, you know.
Can I just recommend this? Obviously, we have a good doctor here. Like, I use NHS talking therapy. Like, I had to wait, I think it was 8 weeks, so I went into a black male therapist. So like, oh, we got one ready for you now. And I'm like, my issues are workplace racism, and I need to talk to someone that is from the same culture as me. But I've used it, my ex has used it, my friends use it, one of my parents has used it. So whilst yes, there are issues in it, just need to be kind of dealt with. Like, I'm sure there are talk therapies for other brothers, but we're all here in Britain. And for anyone listening as well, not only do you have that, you have Papyrus, you have Mind, you have Samaritans, Young Minds, for anyone that's not under 30. There's so many tools and resources, and I don't want you or anyone else here to feel like you have to kind of carry that burden. Because I often say, I'm not a therapist. In my group, I'm like, we're here to support each other. And I also, that's similar to yourself, I get so many calls, and I sometimes feel overwhelmed. And I'm like one brother, he's that with having I'm like, bro, we have a group of 40 people, please ask. And he's got that pride. And I'm like, you're so preserving. Yeah. Like, there's 40 people in this group chat that you've met and you work with. So it's like, not only having to like shoulder that burden, but it's just, I know it sounds cheesy, it's like there's resources out there in NHS and in the voluntary sector as well.
Yeah, swallowing your pride, over so many opportunities.
Yeah, can I just make a very brief point? What you guys have sort of described there is, that's an intervention for suicide prevention. So just recognising that sign, just being open, just being communicating, you can break that person's thought process. And that's a key facet for suicide prevention. And just listening to all of your stories was just so amazing. And I'm just thinking about my patient cohort. The people who do come and see me are probably old enough to be your fathers, and they are reluctant to open up in this way. And for me, it's about sort of, I'm thinking, what techniques can I use to sort of get them to open up and start to share their experiences, because they've lived that sort of generation before and had to sort of meet those ideals and that machoism, and had to contend with the pressures that they've had. But it's been really, really insightful for me, and I'll reflect and sort of work out some strategies on how I can help the 2 generations above you guys.
Good on our podcast.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Dev. Thank you.
So both as well as Dev,
It's been great for this space.
Thank you very much for coming out.
When I believe in nature, I trust nature. Nature always decides when things tip out of order on one end, in real and in the other. You know, things like this come up and they start to exist. I mean, because I said to someone a couple of years ago, I think we have a problem with it. Honestly, something's not right with us, not with us as a whole. And I think we all know what's happened over the last couple of years, especially with Croydon or in London, with men being on the news. You know, some of the high profile stories that from. I told you, man, feel it. But nature works and it's working, and it just reminds me that the rebalancing is coming back. There's things like this wouldn't exist otherwise. So I salute everyone in the room, but the family especially, because you're hosting. It's working, the balance is sorting itself out.
Thank you, bro. And so it can only work, I appreciate that, and take that on board. It can only work with you brothers, everybody that's online as well. But I haven't actually, for the first time, we haven't actually acknowledged everybody online as well. So thank you guys for joining. My bro David, yeah, we received that. But it will only work. It wouldn't work without all of your engagement, without all of your trust, all of your vulnerability, all of your vulnerability like that. So thank you very much. Yeah, Tom, I think we're gonna wrap up because we have gone over a bit. Bro Newton, thanks for joining us over.
Yes,
I know you came in. It's okay, but no problem. No need to apologize. I'm happy to have you with us.
Guys, is everyone okay with a quick photo at the end? I know some people might not want to be, but if we're all right with it, that'd be great.
No judgment.
Break bread and
prosper.
Talk to a brother.